And over here, where there are no lines, which are the white spaces over here, it just shows that that segment was different from the original sequence. And this just demonstrates how it just compared the original sequence just compared it with one organism. So the query is the original sequence, and the subject is just one of the organisms out of thousands of sequences that it compared. And over here, it reads, the positive reads 213 out of 213. So that means that out of the 213 letters in the sequence, 100% of the letters were exactly the same in this case. And this is where we further narrowed down our search to 3 organisms. The H is the human MECP2 gene, the M is the mouse, the X is the X lavas or African cloud frog, and the C is the chicken sequence. And the red represents the identical amino acids. The blue, like right over here, the blue represents similar amino acids. They're not exactly the same, but they're similar. For instance, over here, the amino acids over here, the human and the mouse had the same amino acids, whereas the African cloud frog and the chicken had the same amino acids. However, the human and the chicken had different amino acids. And then over here, the green line just represents the amount of amino acids that bind to the DNA using the MVD domain. And then the dashes just represents the differences of the amino acids between the sequences. And the star it represents the stop codon, which where the sequence stops. And then the arrow just represents the precise positions of where the mutation occurs. So for example, in here, the first mutation in the human sequence will occur at position 106. So the gene will be normal if the amino acid is R. However, it will be mutated if the amino acid is W.
Alright, so between the first 6 and 8 months, you don't show any signs of having the disease. In fact, you have normal development. And then gradually, mental and physical symptoms seem to occur, like hypotonia, which is loss of muscle tone. And this is usually the first symptom. And then diminished eye contact, severe development of language, loss of speech. They don't seem to communicate well. Loss of purposeful hand movements, often ringing and washing. I mean, it's just like clap a lot. And apraxia, which is problems crawling and walking, and loss of social engagement. No. And the first stage is the early onset phase. And development stops after 6 to 18 months. The second is rapid destructive phase, and hand movements and speech are first lost. The plateau phase, symptoms may seem to lessen, and most people spend their lives in this stage. And then the last stage is the late motor deterioration phase, which is loss of movement and muscle tone. And there's no cure for this disease. However, there's treatments that are supposed to slow the loss of ability, improve movement, and encourage communication. And therapies include physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech-language therapy.
Okay, Rett syndrome occurs in all racial and ethnic groups in 1 of every 10,000 to 23,000 female births, so it is a rare disease. And although Rett syndrome is a genetic disorder, the inheritance is dominant if one copy of the mutated gene in each cell of the X chromosome causes the condition. So, boys who have an MECP2 mutation, they only have one X chromosome, so they lack a backup copy. So if they have the mutation, boys will die shortly after birth. And then this is just a picture that shows the family. The females in this entire family have Rett syndrome. Future research. The National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke and the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development, which are 2 of the National Institute of Health facilities, are trying to find out how the MECP2 protein functions And with this information, it will help increase understanding of the disorder, and it will also be seen therapies to help out the many who have the disease. And one outcome might involve is if they can manipulate the malfunctioning of the MECP2 gene, then they can prevent the progression of the disorder. And these are just pictures of the many girls who have Rett syndrome. All of these girls are in their first or second stage of Rett syndrome, except for this woman over here. She lived up to her last stage of the disease. These are our references. We would like to acknowledge our mentor, Dr. Brennan,
Our co-mentor.
Ms. Gonzalez, which was a staff member of BCG, from Community College and staff, Harlem Children's Society and staff members, and all you guys for listening. Thank you.